In this space, we will explore different aspects of mental health, psychiatry, and psychology, with the goal of educating ourselves and growing together. We will discuss topics such as anxiety, depression, stress, self-esteem, resilience, and much more, always focused on providing updated information based on scientific. Mente Aprende, our goal is for you to learn how to take care of yourself, so that you can live a fulfilling and happy life. So join us on this journey of learning and personal growth, and let's build a community that promotes mental health and well-being. Welcome to Mente Aprende.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of Mente Aprende. I'm Jorge Franco, a psychiatrist, and I'm so happy we're meeting once again in this space to explore the corners of our mind and soul together. Today I want to start with a question that might be a bit uncomfortable. How much energy do you invest each day in presenting a, let's say, pristine version of yourselves to the world? The smiling version, the competent one, the kind one, the one who can do it all. And what about the rest? What do we do with that impatience that overtakes us in traffic? With that pang of envy when we see a friend's achievement? With that deep sadness or rage that sometimes floods us and we don't know where it comes from? Most of us, almost by instinct, do the same thing. We deny it, justify it, or more commonly, sweep it under the rug of consciousness. We exile it to a dark basement of our psyche, hoping that no one, not even ourselves, will find out it's there. Well, that basement, that collection of impulses, emotions, and traits we've judged as unacceptable, has a name. And today's guest baptized it in a way that has resonated for over a century: the shadow. And let's clarify something fundamental from the start. The shadow isn't a malicious force. It's not the devil within us. It is, in the words of depth psychology, the sum of everything we don't know about our own personality. It's the unlived part, the one we repress out of fear, out of shame, or simply because it didn't fit the ideal of the person we were told we should be. To talk about this journey into the depths, to answer that question of whether we dare to know our dark side, today we continue our series of impossible interviews. Thanks to technology and with deep respect and a purely educational purpose, today I have the immense privilege of sitting down to talk with the architect of this map of the soul, a pioneer who stated that wholeness isn't achieved by imagining figures of light, but by making our own darkness conscious. With us, from the vast world of the collective unconscious and the legacy of his work, the Swiss physician, psychiatrist, and psychologist, Dr. Gustav Jung. Dr. Jung, it is a true honor to have you on Mente Aprende. Thank you for accepting this invitation across time.
The honor, and, I must admit, the curiosity are mine, Dr. Franco. To speak through what you call technology is, in itself, a phenomenon worthy of study, an echo in the soul of the world. You have described the threshold of the matter with remarkable clarity. The shadow. Modern society, so proud of its rationality, believes it can simply choose the light and discard the darkness, as if one could have a mountain without its valley, or day without night. It is a fantasy. And it is a dangerous fantasy. For a figure to cast a shadow, it needs light and it needs substance. The light is our consciousness, the ego, the persona we show to the world. But the substance is our totality. To pretend to be only light is to wish to be a flat, two-dimensional figure, without weight, without soul. From the tenderest infancy, we learn which parts of us generate a pause and which parts generate rejection. Anger, greed, vulnerability. We take them and throw them into that basement you described so well, not out of malice, but to survive, to be accepted, to be loved. The shadow, in its origin, is a suitcase full of everything that at some point we feared would cost us love. Therefore, it is not an enemy to be defeated. It is an exiled sibling, a sibling who, in an ironic way, carries with them some of our purest gold.
The image of the exiled sibling is incredibly powerful and revealing, Doctor. It completely changes the perspective. It's no longer a struggle, but a reunion. And it makes me think of what you mentioned as a dangerous fantasy. In my clinical practice, I see daily the suffering caused by this exile. I see how what a person cannot accept in themselves, they fiercely pursue and criticize in others. The man who bitterly complains about others' arrogance without seeing his own pride. The person who accuses everyone of being fake without noticing the mask they themselves wear. Is this then the main mechanism by which the shadow, when ignored, poisons our lives and relationships? Through that phenomenon you called projection?
You've hit the nail on the head, Jorge. Projection isn't a mere mechanism. It's the grand theater of the unconscious psyche. When there's something within us that's too painful or shameful to accept, the psyche, in an act of self-preservation, expels it. It throws it out of us and affixes it to our neighbor's back. It's far more comfortable, isn't it, to see the speck in someone else's eye. The mind functions like one of your modern devices, a film projector. The movie being shown on the screen of the external world is, in reality, inside the apparatus, inside our own unconscious. Thus, we battle our demons, but not on the battlefield of our soul, where they belong, but in the guise of our neighbor, our colleague, the politician from the opposing party, or the enemy nation. And therein lies the poison. Because we don't just see a fault in the other, we hate our own fault in the other. We create an enemy so we don't have to confront the exiled part within us. The unrecognized shadow of an individual becomes a family conflict. That of a community, a scapegoat. That of a nation, well, that of a nation writes the bloodiest chapters of history. Pay close attention to this. When something in another person irritates you, offends you, or even fascinates you in a way that feels disproportionate, that person has become a perfect hook upon which you have just hung a part of your own shadow.
Hearing that, Dr. Jung, is chilling and at the same time overwhelmingly lucid. The history of humanity, and even this morning's news, seem to be a constant confirmation of that idea of the collective projected shadow. And it inevitably brings me to my time, to our era. Today we have these global public squares called social media, platforms where each person can meticulously build an altar to their ideal self, to their light. We create perfect profiles, edited lives, and from that apparent perfection, we point with absolute fury and moral certainty at the shadow of others, often complete strangers, in what has been called cancel culture. My question is, Doctor, how would you view this phenomenon? Have we unwittingly built the most efficient projection machine in history, a place that allows us to avoid encountering ourselves on a global scale, amplifying the collective shadow to levels you perhaps never imagined?
Jorge, your description is surgically precise. What you are telling me is not merely a tool or a public square. It is something far more archetypal. It is a global black mirror, a collective speculum that both reflects and distorts the psyche with a power my generation could barely have conceived. Consider my concept of the persona, the mask we all wear to function in society. It is necessary. It is the face we present to the world. In my time, a man put on his suit to go to work, adopting the role of doctor, lawyer, or family man. It was a functional mask, and upon returning to the intimacy of his home, ideally, he would take it off. The danger was always identifying too much with that mask and forgetting the face beneath. Now, you tell me that you have created a system where people can fabricate a persona, not of flesh and blood, but of pure light, a perfect mask, without wrinkles, without blemishes, without unexpected sorrows. A profile that lives 24 hours a day, nourished not by real interaction, but by the anonymous approval of thousands. The danger here has multiplied 1,000-fold. The individual not only risks identifying with the mask, but falls in love with it. And everything that doesn't fit into that idealized self-image, doubt, failure, ugliness, anger, is violently cast into a shadow that, consequently, becomes denser and denser, more resentful. And then there's the phenomenon of cancellation, as you call it. It is the scapegoat ritual of archaic societies, but executed with the brutal efficiency of a machine. Before, a village needed time, rumors, a public trial, to sacrifice its victim and feel it was purging its own sins. Today, you tell me that a clumsy phrase, a youthful mistake, is enough for a global and anonymous mob, a 1,000-headed hydra, to devour them. But here is the key. That mob is not truly attacking that person. Each member of that mass is projecting their own unrecognized shadow onto them. The Puritan projects their own hidden lust, the inflexible moralist their own hypocrisy, the one who feels like a failure their envy of other success. It is a feast of justice that cleanses no one. It only fattens the collective shadow, which becomes more voracious with each sacrifice. Every canceled person is a broken mirror into which the mob refuses to look. The work of the soul doctor is an alchemical process. It requires the individual to descend into their own inner laboratory. They must have the courage to take the prima materia, the raw material which is the lead of their flaws, their envy, their anger, their greed, and place it in the athanor, in the furnace of self-awareness. It is a slow, solitary work that requires heat, patience, and suffering. Your projection machine offers a seductive escape route. Instead of working on one's own lead, it is much easier and more gratifying to point out the lead in the neighbor's crucible and shout, "Impure!" One feels virtuous, but the true gold, the aurum philosophicum, which is the self, the totality of being, becomes unreachable. They are left with an illusion of purity, while the soul remains as unworked lead. So, yes, Jorge, you have built the most extraordinary machine for automating the flight from oneself. A labyrinth of mirrors where everyone shouts at reflections, unaware that they are alone in the center, shouting at themselves.
Dr. Jung, your analysis is devastating. The image of the global black mirror and the failed alchemy resonate in an incredibly profound and contemporary way. It is a precise diagnosis of the neurosis of our time. We've discussed the what, the why, and its dangerous modern manifestations. But the people listening to us now, perhaps feeling the weight of their own shadow, the lead within them, will be asking, and now what? If we've identified the poison, what's the antidote? If you've described the labyrinth, where do we begin to look for the exit? Leaving aside the immense complexity of society and returning to the individual listening at home, in their car, what is the first step? What is the first practical tool a person can use to stop casting their shadow onto others and bravely begin to dialogue with it?
That, Dr. Franco, is the essential question, the most important one of all. It is the moment when the patient stops describing symptoms and asks for the cure. And I must be honest, the antidote is not a pill to be swallowed, but a path to be walked. It is the opus magnus, the great work. And the first step is not forward into the world, but inward into the soul. And like any journey into the unknown, it requires, above all else, courage. You ask me for a tool. I will give you two. Two keys that open the first doors to the basement. The first key is the art of relentless self-observation. Stop looking so much outward and begin to observe your own reactions. Become a hunter of your own shadow. The trail you must follow is that of your affective responses, your disproportionate emotions. For example, you are in a meeting and a colleague presents an idea that you find stupid, and you feel a wave of irritation, contempt, almost anger. The automatic reaction of the ego is to think how incompetent this man is. The courageous work, the alchemical work, is to stop at that precise instant, breathe, and instead of judging outward, ask yourself the honest question inward: what part of me is vibrating with this situation? Is it perhaps my own intellectual arrogance that feels offended? Or is it perhaps the fear of my own repressed stupidity that I cannot bear to see reflected in him? The mere act of formulating the question already withdraws some of the power of the projection. Another example. You see a person on your social media who travels the world, who seems free, and you feel a pang of bitter envy, a resentment that gnaws at you. The ego will say, how superficial, how conceited. The self, your totality, invites you to ask, what is valuable in that figure for me? Is it the freedom I myself do not dare to take? Is it the courage to live an unconventional life that I have sacrificed for security? Sometimes, Doctor, the brightest gold of our personality we have projected onto those we envy most. I recommend to anyone listening, get a notebook, a shadow journal, and write down these hunts without censorship. Paper can bear the weight of truth much better than our fragile consciousness at first. The second key, even more direct yet more mysterious, is to learn to listen to the language of the psyche. And the psyche does not speak in the logical language of the day, but in the symbolic language of the night. I refer, of course, to dreams. The dream is a letter that the unconscious sends us every night. To ignore it is like refusing correspondence from an intimate friend who seeks only our well-being. Imagine that you recurrently dream you are being pursued by a dark, threatening figure, a thief, a murderer, a vagrant. The natural reaction of the ego in the dream is to run, to feel panic. The conscious work upon awaking is to do the opposite. It is to sit with that image and instead of fleeing, ask, who are you? What do you bring me that I do not want to see? If I let you catch me, what would you give me? That threatening figure might be your own repressed instinctual strength, your necessary aggression to set boundaries, your chaotic creativity that you fear unleashing. By turning your back on it, you turn your back on a vital part of your own energy. To dialogue with that figure is to begin healing the split. These are the two keys, Doctor. The honest observation of your projections during the day and the humble respect for the theater of your dreams during the night. It is not a magical solution. It is the beginning of the most crucial relationship a human being can cultivate, the relationship with their own soul in its totality.
Thank you, Dr. Jung. This is guidance of immense clarity and depth. The idea of hunting one's own reactions and using a shadow journal, as well as the courageous exercise of dialoguing with dream figures, these are incredibly practical tools. Anyone listening to us can start applying them today. In fact, it resonates enormously with practices in modern psychotherapy. Mindfulness, or present moment awareness, is essentially that non-judgmental self-observation you describe. And working with internal narratives, with rewriting one's own story, has much to do with giving new meaning to those dark parts. We've spoken about the work, the how. Now I'd like you to tell us about the destination of this journey. If a person embarks on this alchemical process, if they begin to gather their exiled siblings and integrate their shadow, what do they find at the end of the road? What is a human being like who has made peace with their totality? Is that the state you referred to as individuation?
Yes, Dr. Franco. That is the name of the destination, individuation. The word itself is fundamental. It doesn't mean individualism, as so many mistakenly believe. Individualism is the ego's urge to stand out. Individuation is the soul's calling to complete itself. It means becoming an individual, that is, not divided. It is the process by which a being detaches from collective masks and roles to become the totality of what it was always destined to be. Think of an oak tree. An acorn contains the tree's complete potential. It does not aspire to be a pine or a willow. Its sole purpose is to realize its own oakness as fully as possible, given the conditions of its soil, the amount of light it receives, and the storms it must endure. Individuation is precisely that. It is the process of realizing the self, what one essentially is. It is ceasing to try to be a copy of a good person imposed on us by culture, and beginning to be the original and authentic human being that we are. And what is this individuated person like? They are not a saint. In fact, it's very likely they will appear less perfect in the eyes of superficial society. Having accepted their shadow, they know their own capacity for evil, and that makes them not arrogant, but profoundly humble. Since they no longer need to project their demons, they judge others much less. They are capable of feeling immense joy and also deep sorrow, but they are not destroyed by either, because they have united the opposites within themselves. Their center of gravity is within, not in external approval. Individuation is not an achievement for superhumans. It is for whole human beings. It is the woman who, at 50, leaves a successful career that was eating away at her soul to dedicate herself to pottery, not because she seeks fame or fortune, but because her hands, her soul, long to feel the clay. It is the man who finally learns to say no without feeling guilt, and to say, I love you, without fear of vulnerability. They are not a perfect being, I insist. They are a real being. In alchemy, the goal of the great work was the conjunctio oppositorum, the sacred marriage of opposites, the king and the queen, the sun and the moon. In the psyche, it is the union of the conscious with the unconscious, of the persona with the shadow, of the ego with the self. It is not a static state reached one day and possessed forever. No, it is a continuous dance. The goal is not to reach a final port, but to learn to navigate life guided by that inner compass, the compass of the soul. Individuation is, ultimately, the answer the soul gives to the question, who am I beyond my name, my profession, and the opinion of others? It is the most radical act of self-love and, paradoxically, the greatest and most authentic service one can render to the world.
Dr. Jung, I believe there is nothing I can add to that description. The idea of not seeking perfection, but wholeness, of aspiring to be like that oak fulfilling its own unique destiny, is a message of immense liberation and beauty. It has been an immeasurable honor and privilege to have this conversation. It has left me, and I am sure all those listening, with a profound and valuable task ahead. And so, we return. We return to our time, to our present. What a journey, wasn't it? What a dense yet profoundly necessary conversation. Engaging with Carl Jung's ideas is like peering into an abyss. Yes, but one filled with treasures. If I had to choose a few pearls of wisdom from this incredible encounter for us to carry forward, they would be these three key takeaways from our dialogue. First, the fundamental idea of changing our relationship with our own darkness. The shadow isn't a monster we must annihilate, but that exiled sibling, as Dr. Jung said, longing to be seen. And ironically, it holds part of our strength, our creativity, and our purest gold. Second, using our emotional reactions as a treasure map. That intense irritation, that corrosive envy, that excessive admiration, they speak less about the other person and more about ourselves. They are neon arrows pointing directly to the parts of our shadow that we are projecting. Hunting these projections in a journal is perhaps the most powerful and accessible tool we take away today. And finally, the most liberating idea of all. The goal of life is not perfection, it is wholeness. The aim isn't to eliminate the shadow, but to have the courage to integrate it, to stop trying to be an idealized, false version of ourselves and become, like the oak in his metaphor, the most authentic expression of what we already are, with our lights and our shadows. That, and nothing else, is individuation. The question Dr. Jung posed to us, and which gives this episode its title, still hangs in the air for each of us. Do you dare to know your dark side? This is not an easy path. It requires radical honesty and great courage. But it is, I dare say, the only path toward a life of genuine meaning and lasting inner peace. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for joining us on this journey into the depths. If this content brings you value, the best way to support our project is by subscribing. You can find and follow Mente Aprende podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, so you don't miss any of our future episodes. And if you want to continue the conversation throughout the week, I invite you to join our community. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. On all platforms, look for us as @Mente Aprende. I'm Jorge Franco, and remember, knowing your mind is the first step to taking care of it and living a fuller life. Until next time.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Mente Aprende. We hope you have learned something new and useful for taking care of your mental health and that of your loved ones. Don't forget to subscribe and share. Thank you for being part of our community promoting mental health and well-being. See you on the next episode of Mente Aprende.